Hey Dog found a baby in a ditch. What it did afterwards left the family in tears. The sun was setting behind the dense canopy of oak trees, casting long, eerie shadows across the quiet countryside. The gentle hum of crickets filled the air, but beneath the surface of this serene scene, something was stirring. At the edge of a winding dirt road where the forest met the open field, a lone dog trotted purposefully, its sharp ears twitching at every rustle in the underbrush. This wasn't just any stray. This was Max, a rugged German shepherd known in the village for his keen instincts and unwavering loyalty. Tonight, though, there was an unusual urgency in his stride. The sky darkened, the last rays of sunlight disappearing behind the hills. The wind picked up, whispering through the leaves and carrying with it a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a whimper, barely audible but enough to catch Max's attention. He paused, head cocked to one side, his senses alert. The sound came, again this time more distinct. A soft, plaintive cry that sent a shiver down his spine. Max followed the sound, his paws crunching softly on the gravel path. His nose twitched, picking up an unfamiliar scent, a mix of damp earth and something else, something fragile and vulnerable. He quickened his pace, the whimpers growing louder as he approached a shallow ditch hidden by overgrown grass. There, half buried under a tangle of weeds and mud, lay a bundle. Max's heart raced as he nudged the bundle gently with his nose. The fabric shifted, revealing the pale, tear-streaked face of a baby, no more than a few months old. The infant's cries were weak, but they echoed with a desperate plea for help. Max's instincts kicked in. Carefully, he grasped the edge of the blanket with his teeth, pulling it free from the entanglement of roots and debris. The baby's tiny hands flailed, clutching at the air, as if seeking comfort in the cold, unforgiving night. Max crouched beside the child, his warm breath providing a small measure of comfort against the chill. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The distant howl of the wind, the rustle of leaves, and the symphony of nocturnal creatures all faded into the background. It was just Max and the baby, two souls connected by an unspoken bond in this desolate stretch of wilderness. But Max knew he couldn't linger. He had to act fast. With surprising gentleness, he gripped the blanket once more, lifting the baby onto his back. The infant let out a soft, startled cry, but soon settled into the rhythm of Max's steady movements. The journey back to the village was fraught with obstacles. The underbrush clawed at Max's fur, and the uneven terrain tested his balance. Yet, he pressed on, driven by an unyielding determination to save the fragile life entrusted to his care. As they neared the outskirts of the village, the lights of a small cottage flickered in the distance. Max recognized the warm glow. It was the home of the Johnson family, a kind-hearted couple who had often shown him kindness. He quickened his pace, the soft cries of the baby spurring him forward. Inside the cottage, Sarah Johnson stood by the window, her heart heavy with worry. Her husband Tom was out searching for their missing infant, their worst fears gnawing at the edges of their minds. Suddenly, Sarah's eyes widened as she spotted Max emerging from the darkness, a bundle cradled on his back. Without a second thought, she rushed to the door, flinging it open as Max bounded up the steps. He gently laid the baby at her feet, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and exhaustion. Sarah gasped, her hands trembling as she scooped up her child, tears streaming down her face. Tom arrived moments later, his face a mask of disbelief and gratitude. He knelt beside Max, his voice choked with emotion. "You saved her, Max. You saved our baby." The cottage filled with the sounds of sobs and joyful cries as the family reunited, their hearts swelling with gratitude for the unlikely hero who had brought them back together. Max, ever humble, simply wagged his tail, content in the knowledge that he had done what was needed. That night, as the family huddled together, the warmth of their love radiating through the small cottage, Max lay by the fire, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. He had found the baby in a ditch, and what he did afterwards had indeed left the family in tears, not of sorrow but of profound, heartfelt gratitude. The night had grown colder, and a thick fog began to roll in, shrouding the village in a ghostly veil. The Johnsons' cottage, once filled with warmth and light, now seemed a fortress against the encroaching darkness. Inside, Sarah rocked her baby, now fast asleep, while Tom sat by the fire, his eyes fixed on Max, who lay at his feet. "Tom," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking the silence. "What if we hadn't found her in time? What if Max hadn't been there?" Tom didn't answer immediately. He stared into the flickering flames, his mind replaying the events of the evening. His thoughts drifted back to the moment they realized their baby was missing. It had started as an ordinary afternoon. Sarah had taken their daughter Lily for a walk in the fields. The sun was warm, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers. Lily had giggled, her tiny hands reaching out to touch the blossoms. But as the day wore on, the sky darkened. And the weather took an unexpected turn. The wind picked up and a sudden chill swept through the valley. Sarah decided it was time to head back, but as she gathered their things, a sharp cry pierced the air. Turning around, she saw Lily had disappeared from her sight. Panic surged through her veins as she frantically called out her daughter's name. "Tom! Tom!" she had screamed, her voice echoing across the open fields. Tom had rushed from the house, fear etched into every line of his face. They searched together, their hearts pounding with dread. The wind howled around them, drowning out their voices. Hours passed, the daylight fading into an ominous dusk. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every rustle in the grass a cruel trick of the mind. Desperation clawed at them as they scoured the area. Tom's mind raced with terrifying thoughts. Had Lily wandered into the forest? Had she fallen into the nearby stream? Each possibility was more horrifying than the last. Then, out of nowhere, Max appeared. His fur was matted, his eyes sharp. With determination, he barked once, a short, urgent sound that drew their attention. Without hesitation, he turned and bounded away, pausing only to make sure they were following. "He knew," Tom said quietly, his voice pulling Sarah back to the present. He knew exactly where she was. The memory of that frantic chase through the woods was still fresh. Max had led them through a maze of trees and overgrown trails, his instincts guiding them with an uncanny precision. The forest was dense, the underbrush thick with brambles that tore at their clothes. The air was heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, but all Tom and Sarah could focus on was the dog ahead of them, their last hope. At last, Max stopped at the edge of a shallow ditch. He barked again, this time softer, almost as if he were trying not to frighten the precious cargo he had found. Tom and Sarah had stumbled forward, their breath caught in their throats as they peered into the shadows. There, wrapped in a blanket, was Lily. Her tiny face was streaked with tears, her cries weak but insistent. Tom had scrambled down, his hands shaking as he lifted her into his arms. She clung to him, her small body trembling but alive. Alive and safe. Sarah had collapsed beside them, her sobs of relief mixing with the rustle of the trees. Max stood watch, his eyes vigilant, as if guarding against any further danger. It was a moment they would never forget, a moment where fear and hope collided, leaving them breathless and forever changed. Now as they sat in the warmth of their home, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Sarah gently placed Lily in her crib, brushing a kiss against her forehead. She turned to Max, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You saved her." "Max, you saved our baby," she whispered, her voice trembling with gratitude. Max lifted his head, his tail wagging slightly. There was no need for words. The bond between them spoke volumes. He had done what any loyal friend would do, protected those he loved no matter the cost. But even as they found comfort in each other, a question lingered in the back of Tom's mind. How had Lily ended up in that ditch? Had she wandered there? On her own, or had something or someone led her there? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, a deeper mystery that needed unraveling. As the fire crackled softly, Tom made a silent vow. He would find out the truth, no matter how long it took. For now, they were safe, but he knew that danger often lurked in the most unexpected places. And this time they had been lucky. Max had been there to save them. But what if next time they weren't so fortunate? He glanced down at the dog, his loyal companion. and felt a surge of gratitude. They had faced the darkness together, and they had won. But the battle was far from over. The night air was thick with an eerie stillness, the kind that seeped into your bones and made every sound feel amplified. Tom couldn't shake the unease that clung to him, even as they tried to settle back into their routine. But Max, their trusted savior, seemed ever watchful, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond the cottage with an intensity that suggested he knew more than he let on. It had been days since the harrowing incident, and while life resumed a semblance of normalcy, the questions lingered. How had Lily ended up in that ditch, and why had Max, of all creatures, been the one to find her? The loyal dog had always been protective, but this felt different, almost as if he had been guided by something unseen. One crisp morning, as the first light of dawn painted the horizon in hues of pink and gold, Tom decided to follow Max. He had noticed the dog slipping away during the early hours, his movements deliberate, purposeful. Curiosity gnawed at Tom, and he felt an unspoken pull to uncover the truth. Max moved with a quiet grace, his paws barely making a sound on the dew-kissed grass. He led Tom through the familiar paths of the forest, the dense canopy overhead creating a patchwork of shadows on the ground. The air was cool, carrying the earthy scent of moss and fallen leaves. As they ventured deeper, the forest grew quieter, the usual chorus of birds and insects replaced by an almost reverent silence. Max's ears twitched and he paused, sniffing the air before continuing. It was then that Tom noticed something peculiar, a faint trail of footprints, too small to be his own, leading away from the main path. The footprints were erratic, as if whoever had left them was in a hurry or disoriented. They meandered through the underbrush, occasionally veering off course before realigning. Tom's heart quickened as he followed them, the memories of that night resurfacing with each step. Max stopped abruptly, his gaze fixed on a clearing up ahead. Tom peered through the foliage, his breath catching at the sight before him. Nestled amidst the trees was a small hidden cave, its entrance partially obscured by vines and overgrowth. The footprints led directly to it. Tom approached cautiously, his steps slow and deliberate. Max stood by his side, his posture alert but calm. The cave was cool and dark, the air within carrying a hint of dampness. As Tom's eyes adjusted to the dim light, he noticed something remarkable, a makeshift bed of leaves and twigs carefully arranged as if someone, or something, had prepared it as a shelter. His mind raced with possibilities. Was this where Lily had been taken? Had someone sought to protect her from the elements? The thought was both comforting and unsettling. He knelt down, running his fingers over the leaves, noting how meticulously they had been placed. Max's sudden growl snapped Tom out of his thoughts. The dog's eyes were fixed on the shadows at the back of the cave. Tom followed his gaze, his heart pounding in his chest. Slowly a figure emerged from the darkness, a fox, its russet fur blending seamlessly with the surroundings. The fox moved with an air of cautious curiosity, its sharp eyes locked onto Max. For a moment, man, dog, and fox stood frozen, the air thick with unspoken tension. Then, in an unexpected turn, the fox lowered its head, its posture non-threatening, almost submissive. Max relaxed, his growl fading into a soft whine. He took a step forward, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air between them. The fox didn't retreat. Instead, it held its ground, its gaze steady and unafraid. It was a moment of silent understanding, a truce between natural rivals. Tom watched in awe as Max and the fox seemed to communicate without words. There was a depth to their interaction, a mutual recognition of shared purpose. It dawned on him that the fox might have played a role in saving Lily, perhaps guiding Max to the ditch or providing shelter in the cave. As the morning sun filtered through the trees, casting golden light on the clearing, Tom felt a profound sense of gratitude. The fox, an unlikely ally, had become part of their story, a silent guardian watching over them from the shadows. Max and the fox remained side by side for a moment longer before the fox turned and disappeared into the forest, its movements swift and graceful. Max watched it go, his eyes reflecting a quiet respect. Tom knew this wasn't the end of their encounters. It was just the beginning of a deeper connection between them and the wild. He reached down, placing a hand on Max's head, feeling the warmth and strength of his loyal companion. "You've got friends in unexpected places," he murmured, a soft smile tugging at his lips. "And so do we." As they made their way back to the village, Tom felt a renewed sense of hope. They weren't alone in this journey. With Max by their side, and the mysterious fox watching over them, they had allies in the most unlikely of forms. The forest, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become a sanctuary, a place where bonds were formed and lives were saved. And in that sanctuary, amidst the shadows and light, the seeds of trust and friendship were sown, bridging the gap between human and animal in a way that would forever change their lives. The days following their encounter with the fox were filled with an overwhelming sense of vigilance. Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. The forest had always been a place of mystery, but now it seemed alive with secrets, whispering its truths in the rustling leaves and distant calls of unseen creatures. Lily had returned to her playful self, her laughter echoing through the cottage as she chased Max around the yard. Yet Tom noticed the subtle changes in her demeanor. She seemed more attuned to the world around her, her eyes often drifting toward the forest as if drawn by an invisible thread. It was as if the experience had left an indelible mark on her young heart, connecting her to the wilderness in ways Tom couldn't fully comprehend. One particularly cold morning, the peace of their routine was shattered. The village was buzzing with news. Several children had gone missing overnight. Panic spread like wildfire, parents clutching their children tightly, eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the lost. Tom's heart sank. The thought of more children in danger brought back the terror of nearly losing Lily. He couldn't stand by while others faced the same nightmare. Gathering supplies, he prepared to join the search party, determined to do whatever it took to bring the children home safely. Max, sensing the urgency, was at Tom's side, his eyes reflecting a fierce determination. Together they ventured into the forest, the weight of their mission pressing heavily on their shoulders. The search was arduous, the dense underbrush slowing their progress. The cold bit at their skin, and the forest, once a place of serene beauty, now felt like a labyrinth of shadows and hidden dangers. Tom called out the children's names, his voice echoing through the trees, only to be met with silence. Hours passed with no sign of the missing children. Desperation threatened to creep in, but Tom refused to give in. He kept moving, his hope anchored by the bond he shared with Max. The dog's instincts had proven invaluable before, and Tom trusted him implicitly. As dusk began to settle, casting long, eerie shadows across the forest floor, Max suddenly froze. His ears perked up, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Tom followed his gaze to a cluster of trees where the undergrowth was unusually thick. Something, or someone, was hiding there. Cautiously, Tom approached, his heart pounding in his chest. He pushed aside the branches, revealing a hidden clearing. His breath caught as he saw a small figure huddled beneath a makeshift shelter of branches and leaves. It was one of the missing children, a young boy named Ethan, his face pale with fear but otherwise unharmed. "Ethan!" Tom's voice broke with relief as he knelt beside the boy. "It's okay. You're safe now." The boy clung to Tom, his small frame trembling. "There were voices," Ethan whispered, his eyes wide with fear. "They said they would help us, but then we got lost." Tom's mind raced. Voices? Who could Ethan have heard? The forest was vast, and the thought of unknown forces lurking within its depths sent a shiver down his spine. He knew they had to find the other children before it was too late. With Ethan secured on his back, Tom pressed on, Max leading the way. The dog's keen senses guided them through the maze of trees, each step taking them closer to the heart of the forest. The air grew colder, and the sounds of nocturnal creatures filled the night, adding to the tension. Suddenly, Max stopped again, his ears twitching. This time Tom heard it too, a faint melodic sound almost like a lullaby drifting through the trees. It was hauntingly beautiful, yet deeply unsettling. The sound seemed to beckon them, leading them toward a rocky outcrop. There, huddled together, for warmth, were the remaining children. Their eyes were wide with fear, but they were safe, untouched by the cold or the wild. Tom's heart swelled with relief as he rushed to their side, gathering them close. "We're here," he whispered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "You're going to be okay." Max stood guard, his eyes scanning the surroundings. Tom could sense the dog's unease, his posture tense and alert. Something was out there watching them, but for now they were safe. The journey back to the village was slow and treacherous, the children weak from their ordeal. Tom carried them one by one, Max staying close by, his presence a comforting anchor. In the dark, the forest seemed to close in around them, the shadows deepening with each passing moment. As they neared the edge of the forest, a sudden noise stopped them in their tracks, a rustling in the bushes, followed by the low, guttural growl of an unseen predator. Tom's grip on the children tightened as he scanned the darkness, his breath coming in short, panicked bursts. Max stepped forward, his growl deepening, warning whatever was out there to stay back. The air was thick with tension, the forest holding its breath. Then from the shadows the fox appeared, its eyes glowing in the dim light. To Tom's astonishment, the fox didn't show any aggression. Instead, it moved slowly, circling the group as if protecting them from the unseen threat. The presence of the fox seemed to calm Max, and together they formed a protective barrier around the children. The growling faded, the predator retreating into the depths of the forest. Tom let out a shaky breath, his gratitude toward the fox growing with each passing second. Once again, the unlikely savior had come to their aid, ensuring their safe passage through the wilderness. When they finally emerged from the forest, the village was waiting, lanterns casting a warm glow against the night sky. Cheers erupted as Tom and Max led the children back into the safety of their homes. Tears of joy and relief streamed down the faces of parents as they embraced their little ones, holding them close as if never wanting to let go. Tom knelt down, his arms around Lily, who had run out to meet him. Her eyes sparkled with tears, her small hands gripping his jacket tightly. "I knew you'd find them, Daddy," she whispered, her voice filled with unwavering trust. Max sat by Tom's side, his eyes reflecting the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. The fox lingered at the edge of the forest, watching the reunion from a distance before slipping back into the shadows, its role as guardian fulfilled for now as the village celebrated. Tom couldn't help but reflect on the bond that had formed between them and the wild. The challenges they had faced had tested their strength, but they had emerged stronger, their trust in one another unbreakable. And in the heart of the forest, an unlikely alliance had been forged, bridging the gap between man and nature in a way that would forever be remembered. The days following the rescue were filled with relief and gratitude. The village was abuzz with stories of courage and survival, and Tom found himself at the center of it all. Yet despite the joy, a sense of unease lingered in the back of his mind. The forest had become more than just a backdrop to their lives. It was a character in its own right, with secrets still untold. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the sky, Tom stood on the porch, watching the forest. Max sat beside him, ever vigilant. There was something about the quiet of the night that felt different, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The next morning, the village awoke to a startling discovery. Deep within the forest, strange symbols had appeared on the trees, intricate carvings that glowed faintly in the dawn light. The villagers whispered of ancient legends, tales of the forest's guardian spirits, and the mysterious forces that watched over them. Tom knew he couldn't ignore this. The carvings seemed to be a message, a call to action. He packed a small bag, kissed Lily on the forehead, and promised to return soon. Max, as always, was by his side, his loyalty unwavering. They ventured into the forest, following the trail of carvings. The deeper they went, the more the forest seemed to change. The trees grew taller, their branches intertwining to form a natural canopy that filtered the sunlight into ethereal patterns. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the sounds of the forest seemed distant, muted. After hours of walking, they reached a clearing unlike any they had seen before. In the center stood a massive oak tree, its trunk wider than any other, its bark etched with ancient symbols. At the base of the tree, a small figure awaited them, the fox. Tom knelt, his eyes meeting the fox's. There was a quiet understanding between them, an unspoken connection forged through their shared experiences. The fox nudged a small bundle toward Tom, a collection of leaves, berries, and a single glowing stone. The stone pulsed with a gentle light, casting an otherworldly glow on the forest floor. Tom picked it up, feeling a warmth radiate from within. As he held it, images flooded his mind, visions of the forest, the village, and the lives intertwined between them. He saw the children safe, the village thriving, and the bond between man and nature growing stronger. Then, the visions shifted. Tom saw a storm brewing on the horizon, dark clouds gathering with a ferocity that threatened to consume everything in its path. The forest trembled, its ancient trees bending under the force of the winds. The village, too, was at risk, its homes and people vulnerable to the coming tempest. Tom's heart raced. He knew this was the forest's warning, a glimpse into the future, a plea for help. The storm wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a reckoning, a test of their resilience and unity. With renewed determination, Tom and Max returned to the village. He gathered the villagers, sharing the vision and urging them to prepare. At first there was skepticism, but the memory of the recent rescue and the strange symbols swayed their doubts. Together, they fortified their homes, stockpiled supplies, and strengthened their bonds. The villagers worked tirelessly, their efforts fueled by a shared sense of purpose. And as the days passed, the storm loomed closer, its dark clouds a constant reminder of the impending challenge. When the storm finally hit, it was unlike anything they had ever experienced. Winds howled, rain lashed, and the ground shook with the fury of nature's wrath. Trees fell, rivers swelled, and the village was battered by the relentless onslaught. But the villagers stood strong. They huddled together, their trust in each other unwavering. Tom and Max were at the forefront, guiding and protecting those in need. The fox appeared once more, its presence a comforting beacon in the chaos. In the heart of the storm, Tom found himself face to face with the ancient oak. The glowing stone pulsed in his hand, its light cutting through the darkness. He placed the stone at the base of the tree, and in that moment a surge of energy erupted, spreading through the forest like a wave. The storm seemed to hesitate, its fury diminishing as the light grew stronger. The winds calmed, the rain slowed, and the forest began to heal. The oak tree stood tall, its branches reaching toward the sky, a symbol of resilience and hope. As dawn broke, the village emerged from the storm, battered but alive. The damage was extensive, but the spirit of the community remained unbroken. They had faced the storm together, drawing strength from their unity and the bonds they had forged. Tom stood with Lily in his arms, Max by his side, and the fox watching from the edge of the forest. There was a sense of peace now, a feeling that they had been tested and had emerged stronger. The glowing stone had faded, its purpose fulfilled, but its legacy remained, a reminder of the power of trust, the beauty of unlikely friendships, and the resilience of the human spirit. As the village began to rebuild, the forest returned to its natural state, its secrets once again hidden within its depths. But for Tom, Max, and the villagers, the lessons learned would never be forgotten. They had seen the forest's true nature, its dangers, its beauty, and its capacity for connection. And in the heart of the storm, they had discovered something even greater, the strength to face the unknown together. And as the sun rose over the village, casting its warm glow on the new day, Tom knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them with courage, unity, and the unbreakable bond between man and nature. The storm had passed, but its impact lingered in the hearts and minds of the villagers. The sun's gentle warmth returned, casting golden light over the renewed village and the forest that surrounded it. As life slowly returned to normal, the memories of the harrowing ordeal and the miraculous intervention became the cornerstone of a newfound understanding between the people and the forest. Tom stood at the edge of the village, gazing toward the towering trees that had become so much more than a simple backdrop to their lives. The forest was alive with its usual symphony, the rustling leaves, chirping birds, and distant sounds of woodland creatures. Yet, amidst this ordinary day, there was a profound sense of peace, a calm that came from the bond forged during the storm. Max lay at Tom's feet, his golden coat gleaming in the sunlight. The dog had become a symbol of loyalty and bravery, his actions celebrated by the villagers. Children played around him, their laughter echoing through the air, while adults tended to the rebuilding efforts, their faces marked by both weariness and hope. Tom's mind wandered back to the moment he held the glowing stone beneath the ancient oak. The vision of unity, resilience, and the storm's cessation still played vividly in his thoughts. He knew that the stone's power wasn't just in its light, but in the message it carried, that the strength of a community lies in its bonds, its capacity to support one another through even the darkest times. Lily ran up to him, her small hand slipping into his. She looked up with wide eyes, filled with curiosity and innocence. "Daddy, will the forest always be our friend?" she asked softly. Tom knelt to her level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "The forest has always been our friend, sweetheart. We just didn't realize it before. It teaches us to respect, protect, and work together. And just like Max helped us, the forest will watch over us as long as we care for it too." Her eyes sparkled with understanding, and she hugged him tightly. The simplicity of her belief mirrored the lessons they had all learned, the importance of harmony, trust, and mutual respect. As the days turned into weeks, the village thrived, rebuilding not just homes but also the spirit of unity. Stories of the storm and the forest's guardian spread beyond their small community, inspiring others to appreciate the balance between humanity and nature. Tom became a quiet leader, a figure of wisdom and courage. He often found himself at the ancient oak, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The fox, too, appeared from time to time, its presence a gentle reminder of the wild, untamed beauty of the forest. One evening, as the sky painted itself in hues of orange and pink, Tom stood with his family and the villagers around a large bonfire. The crackling flames illuminated their faces, casting shadows that danced in the twilight. It was a gathering of celebration and remembrance, a tribute to their resilience and the connections that had deepened through adversity. The village elder stepped forward, his voice steady and filled with warmth. "We have faced the storm together and emerged stronger. This is not just a tale of survival, but a testament to our bond with each other and the land that sustains us. Let us always remember the lessons of the forest, the power of unity, the strength in compassion, and the beauty of coexisting with nature." The crowd nodded in agreement, their hearts swelling with pride and gratitude. As the night wore on, stories were shared, songs were sung, and laughter filled the air. The forest stood as a silent guardian, its ancient trees swaying gently in the night breeze, bearing witness to the joy and harmony that had been restored. In the days that followed, life continued with a newfound appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things. The forest was no longer seen as a mere collection of trees, but as a living, breathing entity that held wisdom and wonder. The villagers became stewards of the land, ensuring that their actions honored the delicate balance between human life and the natural world. Tom often found solace in the quiet moments, walking through the forest with Max by his side. Each step was a reminder of the journey they had undertaken, the challenges faced and the triumphs achieved. The forest had become a place of reflection, growth, and inspiration. One afternoon, as Tom sat beneath the ancient oak, the fox appeared once more. It approached slowly, its eyes meeting his with a depth of understanding that needed no words. Tom extended his hand, and the fox nuzzled it gently before disappearing back into the trees. He smiled, knowing that the bond they had formed was everlasting. The forest had shared its secrets, its power, and its peace. And in return, the village had offered its respect, care, and unwavering commitment to preserving the harmony between man and nature. As the sun set on another day, casting long shadows across the village and the forest, Tom felt a profound sense of fulfillment. They had weathered the storm, discovered the strength within themselves, and embraced the lessons of the wild. The journey had transformed them all, leaving an indelible mark on their hearts and souls. And as they looked toward the future, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, guided by the wisdom of the forest and the unbreakable bonds they had forged. In the quiet of the evening, Tom whispered a silent promise to the forest, to the fox, and to the memory of the glowing stone. "We will always honor the gift you've given us, the gift of unity, resilience, and the enduring power of hope."